So one thing I think is important to just generally discuss and go over, because I tend to see this quite a lot. It's just one of the few subjects that I intend to touch upon, but maybe I might not get to the other aspects of it. Um, but I think that I see a lot of people talking about, like, women who, or undermining women who put their career first, um, or that type of thing first, ahead of what they actually, ahead of developing a family. Also, the same for men. Goes for men who get undermined for not actually developing a family within a particular set of time. Yeah, within a particular time frame. Like that sort of things is kind of like looked down upon. But in my understanding or in my respect of things, I don't think that that's actually the case. I think that people who have that mindset, who may pick their career or their businesses, um, in that regard, have different attributes that push them towards a particular outcome. And I think that their requirements are also different. I don't think that it's that they don't want to have families or they don't want to establish those things, but I think that the things that set them apart, are usually geared or centered towards a need or a requirement. So people who are highly, focused on whatever it is, extracurricular activities, apart from what regular life expects from them, they tend to get to particular ages where, it's uncommon for them not to have children. It's uncommon for them not to have a family based on the stereotypical environment that they find themselves in. And and I think people like that overall, they don't really care about much, is what people tend to assume. But I think that the thing that drives them, or what makes them want to have a particular, what gives them their motivation, in essence, I believe, is probably like, what they look for romantically is just for companionship, right? And companionship doesn't mean that you're with someone, but companionship is rather the ideology that that person is going to be there. And I think that's a valuable thing amongst people of that nature, right? Because maybe, and I don't know, I think it has a different depth to it, depending on what stage of the process you're in, or at least, like, how far removed. The deeper you go, the further in you go in regards to the pursuit of what it is that you seek to create within your reality. Sometimes the further away you get away from, the further away you remove yourself from that thing that you seek, or that thing that you somewhat require. Now, I think that there's different variations, because of course, if you're that type of person, then you're gonna have money. And when you have money, you can buy that ability for people to currently be there, but you're not gonna be sure if they actually care for you. Like, for example, like women can get escorts, or gigolos, or whatever the case may be, and men can get also escorts, or whatever the case may be, and that can provide them a level of comfort that they need, but it's not long lasting, and it definitely provides some of the physical attributes that people require. But once they have that for a specific length of time, they then see the component that's actually missing, like what it is. They look at it differently. Um, as to what it is that's missing, because you can actually, and it's not guaranteed that those people are always going to be there as well, regardless of how you interact with them, etc. So that's always problematic in one sense or another. But I think that when they want, and I think that what they value most is for people to be there when the end all and be all comes into manifestation. Um, when they're, and I think that's what's most valuable, to people of that nature. It's for meaningful connections with people that are just there because they value you, not only your company, but what you can provide, how you can help them, etc. But also provide like some sort of emotional and romantic attributes, but without maybe the full-fledged attachment that comes along with it. But just having that knowledge and that understanding that those people are going to be there when that particular time or with that particular environment comes into manifestation. I think that's what that of value in that sense. That's my understanding of things. Because people keep talking about this, and I've seen multiple references to it. But I think that what drives and what motivates people of that nature is something definitely different to what we believe, it to be. Is my full consensus on it, and I think that people like that just value like a long-term consistency without no full-fledged attachments, but just having that awareness of like, that maybe one or two people, maybe you have a partner or something like that, and and just enjoying it as time progresses and expressing and fully embracing yourself into those particular feelings and capabilities. Because people do get busy and things do happen, but yeah, it's that continuity that's valuable to people of that nature, and it's not that that they don't. Yeah, it's pretty much that, really. I think overall, they're not bad people, they're not horrible people, but they just value the continuity between entities and individuals. Is a general key thing that I tend to find around that. I don't know if this description has done that justice, but I truly earnestly believe that's what counts amongst people of that nature, as opposed to, getting into a relationship. These people are always thinking long term as well. Their vision is very broad. So relationships can hinder that. Because if you're thinking broadly enough, right, then you should be able to just stroll through life with a person without having to dynamically create an attachment. And it will be emotional, it will be challenging, but that's the thing, though. You overcome those things by communication, without being in a situation where you can lose something. And I know it's difficult to express that, but I basically think that's how their thought process is functioning. And I think that it's just that thing of that, like, if you're still there to them, that's more valuable than not being there. Than being in something and then losing that thing. Or having to put time into maintaining something. And it's not to say that that they'll sleep around or that you won't sleep around, but I think that it's just a thing of just like having the understanding in the onset, and just like having these discussions which then go into something. Because I think it's I don't want to discuss too much, because at the same time I think that, but yeah, I think that's what it is. Because for me personally, I feel like the more I express, the more difficult things become, right? Like, and I don't know why that is. And I think it's because that if I express a lot, then maybe the privacy part starts missing, because that thing is now attributed or attached to my personal being, or my or the expression of my identity as a human being. So yes, I definitely found that to be one of the things that I get. As soon as I mention something, it's like something bad happens to it. It's like it gets attacked or degraded of energy, and I definitely don't want that with some of the things that I definitely want to share. Um, you know. So yes, I think that's pretty much it, really. But overall, I earnestly, truly believe that relationship-wise, things are just the way that they are. As human beings, we're supposed to be free thinking, free spirited, and and whatever the case may be. But I feel that we shouldn't undermine those people for being who they are. But but we should instead value the walk that we take. And and it's difficult, because if somebody, Because, with those type of people, the thing that happens is that everybody else gets married and goes into their own groups, but these people still endeavor. And, you just be them at the end of it. People go off into their own specific bits, but it's that value of seeing that person that you once were with. And it's definitely very difficult because sometimes, people will just turn out like, yeah, now I've got kids, or now they have kids, or now they're married, or now they're in a relationship, and that relationship ends up lasting like forever. But it's difficult to explain. Um, yeah, but I think for me, it's always that thing of the value, or at least that's what I imagine that they feel is that value of just having that person there as they grow in their exploration and whatever it is that they seek to be hopeful and fruitful in. Because it's difficult, it's very difficult. I think that when it comes to these things, um, it's very difficult because it gets dark, right? It gets cold. It gets bizarre, right? And there's always going to be people that are going to be smarter than you, and it's going to be very difficult for you or for individuals. But you always got to have that breath. You always got to have that endeavor to pursue onwards. And I think that don't be discouraged because there's things in this world that we do not understand, and your pursuits are what governs that understanding that you're then granted upon. Because again, what people, because there's a demon within most communities, right? And it's like I can guarantee you right now, from my perception and my visibility of things, right? The reason why people, yeah, the reason why people tend to like, there's people that just want to see you fail, because there's people in this world that there has to be people below them for them to be at a particular level where they feel happy within themselves, right? And I think that's problematic overall. And what I'm talking about here is not about any particular people or social groups. I'm talking like on a large scale, because what you have to understand is that everything is composed of time and dimension, which is to the nth power, right? To the whatever power dimension might be valid there. And so when you start seeing things like that, you start having an understanding about the world that's very different to what you may be taught or what you may have an understanding of. Um, I want you to imagine like an assembly, like there's like a bunch of people. Somebody does something, offsets everything. Like, yeah, I think that's definitely important to understand, and that's one of the things I always go into depth about time. Though I haven't fully got to that bit where I have that understanding yet, it's always a thing that's very important in all the descriptions that I do, because I think that it really underpins most of what governs either religion, spirituality, and other things. And once you have a proper understanding of that, you then understand your power. You then understand what time frame you're moving from, and you understand what time frame you're going into. Um, and I think that perceptions, especially through Instagram, whatever the case may be, those things that are utilized to shape our perceptions, our wills, etc. They define the grid pattern of thought that you enter in, and all those type of things. But what you want to do, you want to get in a situation where you want to be able to understand how people fuck with you, right? And then once you understand how people fuck with you, you want to know how to basically put a stop to it, and how to make sure people understand not to fuck with you, right? Um, Because what happens is, if we foster great communities, there's leeches that inhibit to destroy that, and we don't know how to protect ourselves from that. And I think that's what underpins most of the geopolitical situations that have been sort of going on, because we don't know, as the masses, a lot of people don't actually know, nor understand where their origin is or where their future is, and how that comes into fruition. Most people, it's just the things that they've been told. Um, where some of us, we come from nothing, but we're in nothing, not because that we lack an understanding of reality, but we're in nothing because it's a type of war that we're not privy to an understanding of yet, right? Um, that's vital to understand in all things, and it's the same on the macro and microcosm as well. And you have to be aware. And I know that like it's very difficult, because even like just like your environment, like personally speaking from my own point of view, when I say I'm just talking from my point of view. It's just like my environment's kind of dirty, but I've been blessed to have it, and I'm blessed to be here to experience it. And it's not always like this, because it changes and fluctuates based on variables, right? Um, and to understand those variables, and honor them, and tweak them and thingy them. But again, at the same time, don't be disregarded. Don't feel bad for being set aside. Don't feel bad for being undermined, because again, like I said, we're in a transitional process wherein the old is still, like, when you move from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, right? Those are integers, but we don't take to account the floating point numbers, right? So what's actually happening at the moment is we're in that point frame, we're in those floating point digits after the decimal point are just adjusting themselves to fully align um with the precipice of intention, right? um and that's pretty much it. And you find that your behavior and environment is altered, but it's don't let it bother you too much. And you know don't let anyone threaten you. Don't, but nobody would. And the thing for me personally, right, is like I talk about these things where I'm just alone, right? There's not really, I'm just here, but I'm just me in essence, in holy essence. But sometimes it's like I'm not. And I just think there's probably people just inhibiting or messing with my mind state, but I can't be sure, nor can I be certain, right? So I don't actually know all these things. Um, but that doesn't mean that I can't know, right? And that's just one of those things. So, you know, um, what was it that I've been? It's like, you know, bad things happen, deaths do happen, and things of that nature. But it's not our purpose to go looking for them, right? We don't do that. You know, we let those things find, well, not find us in a sense, but we don't chase after them as individuals in time, because we don't know them, nor do we know those realities. And I think that when I bring that into context, because I think that that's the only thing that people hold over us, right? Is death, right? Um, they hold that over us, and people still think that, like, like this whole white black people dynamic. And I think that they, like, that's definitely the one thing that's held over us. But I think that I can't really say too much about it. Um, but if but there's learnings that are required there. And I think that is just that feeling of having control over someone, people being two-faced and all that type of stuff. Like, I don't really vibe with that. So basically just understanding the time frames, understanding integers and floating point numbers, and then aligning yourself accordingly to that. um and believe in God's blessings. And I know, don't lose, your heart, trust in yourself, and and believe and endure onwards. Like, there's so much I could discuss now or put into context, but it's actually quite difficult to do so. But it's to have faith, because otherwise, in truth and all honesty, you wouldn't be here. And the reason why, personally, like, you're here is because that people believe in you, that when you don't even believe in yourself, you know. And there are people that you don't even know that believe in you, and there's people that don't believe in you. But and there's things that have happened behind your back without your awareness, and that's fine. That's okay. It's kind of like you're not in the loop. And it really pisses me off, because it's like when people do stuff to you, or when people do things. And, this is just me as well, by the way. So all these things that I'm discussing here, I don't really know exactly as to, what I'm saying. Like, people do this, that, and that. I don't really interact with people like that. But again, at the same time, I think that when things happen to you, when people do things to you without a true basis of understanding as to the reasoning behind, you know, their actions, because that does manifest itself, right? So people just have these perceptions of whatever understanding they've been given is the understanding that they move forward with. And that's one of the main things to take heed of, right? It's like whatever understanding people have been given is the understanding that they move forward with, right? And once you understand that, I think that's the first and foremost thing. Yeah, and it's like, when people do things bad to you and they ruin your everything, right? But then that thing is not really legit, right? That thing is not really real. So then what happens then, right? They don't actually, sorry is not enough. And I hate it when people say sorry and don't mean it. Like they just ruin everything and leave you with nothing, and that's it, right? And that's just like, to me, I don't believe in that, man. I hate people like that, man. It tends to happen a lot in relationships where people just like completely mess up your thing, and are not remorseful, and they just really, really just like hurt you. And I think that's where a lot of the resentment from men come from, because women ain't really showing that emotion as to what it is that they've actually done. And men just have like a level of hatred for it, so they do things like revenge, whatever, whatever the case may be. And I think that people should be remorseful for their action when they say they don't regret nothing, but these times it just literally like ruined half of your perception of reality. See, these things there, I don't respect that, and I think that people that do that, I don't, like, I'm not learning experience, nor am I a teacher or anything of that nature. Um, Yeah, man. But I'm having fun. I got myself a nice, December planned. Might discuss that a bit. Gonna knock out one or two more things, and then I'm gonna sit down and meditate upon something. Try to get some return from the work that I've done in terms of like certs and stuff. I need to see a return on that before I move on and start doing other things. Because if I don't, then I really lose value in most of the things that I do. Or at least if I'm smart enough, I'll do something smarter. Um, if I'm smart enough, I'll find a decent enough solution to the issues. But I'm trying to see if I can see a return on that, or find a way to at least get some type of profitable income. I think is probably key. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, really. I just want. I don't even know. I don't even know exactly what it is that my expression seeks to govern here, but there's just so much. But I think that I've pretty much covered a little bit that I wanted to just go over today. Um, I think people who have not learned to see through color and other things are denial, and like, the time we're in right now, I kind of just, I don't know anything about it, but I just know that it's here, and I know that there's a future, and I know that there's integers and floating points, and that a lot of the things behind the decimal point are still getting adjusted and aligned. I don't know what's tomorrow, but I do trust, and I'm grateful for people that believe in who I am, though I'm new in a sense in regards to the point of time in which I exist. But not from my perception, only from others' perception. I can only see an introspect from internally as my understanding of myself, but I'm not foolish enough to be led astray. Um, I trust in God as the entity, but not as a God as in the definition of God expressed by a singular sect, but more so as God as a translation of an understanding of a higher power, um, that is before and after me, but also within me, or an extension of it in reality through expression of life form and life force, through interaction with the world and its ever synonymous components that exist on multiple levels of functionality. Thank you for listening. I trust that this message finds you well, and that there's an understanding associated with it that maybe can bring into manifestation thought, and freedom, and other things that help, shape an understanding of not the world, but the world through my perception and beliefs and realities overlaid upon my mind.